Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jamar. Today's episode 151, and we're going to be interviewing Kevin W. How you doing today, Kevin?
Just fine. Thank you.
Doing well. I'm glad to hear that. So yeah, we're going to get started about your story. So let's dive in. Tell me about your childhood and growing up.
We, you know, I didn't realize at the time, but I was told later on I never did have a childhood. I mean, we grew up, we worked. Uh, from the time you got up to the time you laid down, you had something you had to do. 3 o'clock in the morning, my dad would wake me up. We'd go out working. Uh, he'd let me off in time to get on the school bus. I'd go to school. I'd get home of the evening. We'd work till dark.
What kind of work? What kind of work were you doing?
Dad, there one time we had cows, hogs, and stuff like that we raised, and then Dad bought a garbage business. And it was back whenever times we were in a recession. It was back in the late 70s, early 80s. And Dad had got laid off work, and everybody laughed at him. He bought this garbage business, and he ended up paying for it in a year. I mean, it just we worked. The whole family chipped in. I mean, we worked and got it paid off, and then the money, actually come in then. But hauling hay, stuff like that. And then summer vacations, which I mean, it wasn't work to me, but we'd go. My grandfather was a commercial fisherman, so I would go with him all summer long and fish and clean fish, and you know, I was raised the way they told me in rehab, which I had to go to rehab. They told me it sounded like I was raised back in the 50s, but
Yeah, it sounds like
I didn't know any different.
It sounds like a nice basic life. Like, I mean,
Yes.
it sounds like it was rough, but it sounds like, yeah, good old fashioned.
I mean, we didn't know any better, you know.
Where are you located? What state are you in?
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah,
Yes.
so your country, your real country. I'm a Yankee. I'm in the Northeast. I'm in Jersey.
Oh, okay. But nah, it's believe it or not, I have folks here tell me how country I sound. So I mean,
Yeah, you do. It's good though.
But yeah, my girlfriend laughs at me all the time. She said my grandpa before he passed away told me always to get me a redneck man and hang on to him. She said I hope he's looking down because I got one. But
That's good. That's good.
but no, I mean, sometimes childhood was rough. Daddy wasn't just. And still this day, I don't think he was an alcoholic. It's just every time he drank, he got mean. And he and it didn't even have to be drinking. I mean, I was just a kid, and I watched my dad stab my grandfather over an argument, and they wasn't either one of them drinking. I mean, it just we grew up a little bit rough, I guess. I mean, but now even that was normal because I watched my dad and my uncle get into it, and we was I don't know, it's strange what normal can be sometimes.
That's a great way of putting it.
I mean, it really is. You look back on it now and you see how other people were brought up. And I'm like, and it's like my girlfriend with her daughter. I had to catch myself because sometimes I won't say, well, I wouldn't put up with that shit. And then you think about it, and, maybe if my parents would have put up a little bit more off of me, which I mean, I ain't saying I was innocent. I mean, I was a little, I mean, if I couldn't go to sleep without a whooping. But but there's a difference between a whooping and a beating.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, all in all, I mean it was all right. I mean I don't hold any ill will. I did for a long time, but
What did you hold ill will about?
I just not being able after I figured it out, not being able to be a kid, not being able to like do other things that kids were doing, and it wasn't the fact that we didn't have the money. It was just the fact that he just wouldn't let us do it. I couldn't have any spend the night company over. I couldn't, I got to go to the skating rink one time a month, which that was the only thing in that little town that I lived at was a skating rink. And I got to go to it one time a month. And then you had to save up your allowance and go because they wasn't know they was going to pay for it. And which, as hard as it sounds, it taught me a lot. It taught me, look, this is how you manage money. This is how if you want to do something, you pay for it. You bring yourself up, by your own bootstraps per se.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I say, but now the hurtful things that were said, I mean, I've had my dad say he's sorry he ever even had me, getting on to me over some little something, then he gets all fired up and he tell you, I'm sorry I even had you, and stuff like that. I mean, you look back on it now and you think you brush it off as a kid, and then you look back and as an adult and see what it done to you mentally more than I could take the beatings, but the mental stuff is what hurt me more than anything.
Yeah.
That because that mental stuff, it'll bubble up on you whenever you're not even expecting it. Even as an adult, it'll come back and it'll get up there in that head and mess with you.
What kind of stuff would he say?
I mean, just like, can't you do anything right? And I'm waking up at 3 o'clock. Here's me as a kid. I was 9 years old hanging off a butt end of a garbage truck at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then on the way to go home to get a shower, get ready to go to school. It was, can't you do anything right? You need to bring up your grades. You go to work harder this morning. You never could win. Yeah, I always search for that pat on the back, never to get it. But I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, it's more like, just once could you say thank you,
Yeah.
because I got to see all my friends, running around playing and doing this and doing that. I mean, it was tough. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't go back and fix. So you either have to accept it and move on, or you can sit over here and be bitter the rest of your life.
So was your grandfather that way? Do you know?
Ah, you could see where he was in his earlier days, because I can remember my dad talking about getting whooped growing up because he didn't pick so much cotton a day. If he didn't get, and my dad probably weighed 180 pounds, but he was 180 pounds solid. I mean, there was no fat on this man. He was much of a man. But I remember him talking about as a kid dragging a cotton sack, and unless he got 100 pounds a day, he got a beat. He said, if you come back the next day and didn't have that 100 pounds, he said, you stole some off somebody else. Said, you was going to make sure you had your 100 pounds. And I guess my whole family grew up working, like that. So, I mean, they was raised like that. My dad was raised by his grandfather. My grandfather, how grandparents are. They're nicer to their grandkids than ever was their kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, my grandfather worked me, but it never was, why can't you do something better? He'd always set you down and try and show you something. And my dad told me a lot of times that that's not the same man that raised me. That man that raised that's nice to you now would have beat me and you both back then. So I mean, I guess as you get older, you mellow out. I'm waiting on that stage to mellow out, but I hadn't yet. But
in all due time, right?
Yeah. It's just like everything else. It's a stepping process, man. In October, I'll be a year sober. And
Congratulations.
I never would have figured that I would have let something take over me like alcohol did. And right there at the end, it was alcohol and nerve pills, and had a THC vape, but I had to keep that thing plugged up charging because I kept it run down. But I mean, I don't know, it was an escape, and I didn't really realize it was an escape at the time, if that makes any sense. I mean, I just didn't want to feel.
Yeah.
And but I mean, as far as, and me and my dad got into it years later. I was either a junior or senior in high school, and which dad had girlfriends, and mom would take him back. He'd have another girlfriend, mom take him back. I remember as a kid, we had to drive. This was before he had the garbage business. We had to drive to Meridian, Mississippi. One of Daddy's coworkers had called, and Mama loaded us up in the car because she couldn't find anybody to keep us. And we had to go down there and break up Daddy getting married while he was still married to Mama. I mean, it was, yeah, that was
Wow.
kind of, at 8 years old. That's a heck of a sight to see. But
Yeah, that is quite the sight to see.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and it was, and it's hard. It's hard for me to sit right here. They always want me to say in rehab that kind of like that's what made me do this. It's hard to actually lay blame because at the end of the day, the blame laid on me. I'm the one that chose to drink, but it just, I don't know. It's still, and folks laugh. Some of my friends do. They laugh, which they don't laugh to be mean, but they laugh and say, "Man, ain't you got all this stuff figured out yet?" Nah, nah, I sure don't. Probably won't 10 years from now, but I'm working on it.
And that's all we can do. That's all you can do is work on it.
Yes, sir. But, and then I guess kind of fast forward, 17-year-old, I joined the military. Uh, I,
Well,
I was doing
real quick before you jump ahead, how was your childhood like with your social life? Did you have friends and was everything normal in that regard?
pretty much. I mean, you had a few fights in the schoolyard and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know how it is in New Jersey, but I mean, you had fights on the playground. You had girlfriends. You had some that didn't like you, some that did. It was normal, I guess. I mean, you know, it was working. And then going to school, but uh, but now by the time I got a little bit older through school, everybody was working then. So, matter of fact, my junior and senior year, I was working a full-time job at night, going to school during the day.
Wow.
So
What kind of job did you have?
I was changing 18-wheeler truck flats at night and working from 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night and going to school during the day.
Wow.
And then, had a few like in between those jobs. Whenever those jobs would slow down, I'd go to work for like one job I had, Marston's cafeteria, loading a dishwasher, and everybody was complaining. I'm like, y'all don't know what work is yet,
Yeah.
But and then business picked back up at the trucking companies. I go back to work for them. But yeah, I mean it. That part about it working, I have no regrets whatsoever. I just, it would have been nice to have a family with money that wanted to buy you like vehicles and stuff like that. But I'm not sure I'd ever pull through everything if I'd have had everything give to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, and I resented, of all things, I resented my mother, which is hard to say because I lost her back 2 years ago. But all the time she could have said, "Hey, Jim, quit whooping on him." That never did happen because she was afraid he'd get mad at her.
Yeah.
And, and they always made my little brother a priority. My little brother I mean, he's a piece of crap. He's my little brother, but he does not work. He has never met a drug he didn't love. But he hung a moon in their eyes, and uh, that needless to say, he was a favorite. He never did have to lift a finger. He could leave his dishes laying around, and never get in trouble for it. I get a whooping for not making a bed.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it was always. I threw it up to my mom one time. I told her, I said, I said, it's strange. I said, I have worked my whole life. And I said, you've never even said thank you or anything, even after Daddy left. Uh, I was working, putting food on the table because Daddy wasn't paying child support. Mama was working and putting herself through nursing school at a later age. And I was bringing money in and never did get a thank you. And everything I always heard was, was high grade. Heath was my little brother. And even at her funeral, there was one small picture of me and the family. And the rest of it was all with mama and my little brother. And one guy walked up and he said, if it wasn't for that one little picture, they wouldn't even know you was here with us. No. And it's something you had to, it sounds like a pity party telling it, but I mean, it
No, that
does.
hurts. I
It
can
kind of weighs
imagine.
on you. It kind of weighs on you. You kept on, I've asked myself 1,000 times how come I wasn't good enough. And I've even asked myself how could I have done more, and I guess it turned me into a people pleaser because I mean, that's just like today. I had to go for a birthday dinner, and I was telling my girlfriend and her daughter on the way home, because I knew I acted strange once they handed me my presents. I'm not used to getting anything. I'm used to, now I don't mind a bit going out and spending money and buying somebody something, but it's really hard for me to accept anything that I didn't work for still. I mean, and I'll be 51 tomorrow, and it's hard for me to accept that, just taking something. But and I kind of see where, your childhood kind of goes back to that, how you was raised and stuff.
Absolutely. Everything goes back to the like you just said, the way you were raised and the thing, mostly what we learn from our parents. People don't realize how important our parents are because they're the ones we go to for everything. You know what I mean? For the most part, depends on your childhood. Some child's parents are absent, things like that, or barely around. They learn from others, but nonetheless, they go to someone to learn.
Hmm.
You
And I
know?
remember growing up, like some of Daddy's friends would tell him, they'd look at him and say, "Damn, you're hard on that boy," and he'd say, "I'm not as hard as I need to be." I mean, that was just maybe that was his way. In rehab, I had to write him a letter, and that was one of the hardest things I ever had to do because I mean he was gone. I thought, how stupid is this? I'm writing to a dead man. But after I got into it and started writing it, you know, I asked him in a letter, how come I wasn't never good enough? You know, he told me one time I got in a fight with one of my cousins, and one of my cousins was, because I'm not tall, I'm 5'6", 5'7". One of my cousins at 13-year-old was already 6 foot tall. And he picked on me his last time, and I finally got my chance, and I knocked him from the ground, and I got on top of him, whooped him real good. And my dad and my uncle were sitting out there watching this. And about that time, they said, "All right, y'all break it up." Well, as soon as I jumped off of him, I was running over to my daddy. I thought, yeah, if he ever gets up, he's gonna kill me. But my dad had told me 1,000 times that the only time he's ever proud of me is whenever I whooped that boy. I mean, that was it. But it, even I bought and paid cash for a house. I mean, it wasn't a mansion, but I mean, it was, I think, 2,500 square foot house, 10 acres of land, shop. Uh, and I mean, I was proud of it. And he walks through the house. He said, "This is a good starter home." I thought, well, this is a lot better than what I grew up in,
Yeah.
but it just stuff like that. And it just never was, I guess you try and look back on the good things instead of dwelling on the rest of it. But it comes up. I mean, it does in your head. You try and keep it down, but you can't help those little ideas that pop up in your head. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all learned. Everything is learned from our surroundings and our parents.
Hmm.
So,
No,
so
I
did you,
mean,
no, you go.
even going through school, I didn't drink. I didn't. Everybody else was going to like pasture parties and which I mean, where we're from, there's not a whole lot of stuff to do. I mean, you drank we had a downtown which was 5 stores, maybe 2 red lights. Uh, you'd ride around there's no telling how many miles I put riding around that town, just riding around the circle. And you stop in a parking lot, talk to some of your friends. I mean, that was it. And there was a bunch of them that drank out there in parking lots. I still never, I drank one time the whole time I rode around in that little circle, and I had 2 beers. I remember thinking, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die right here. Somebody's gonna call my mama and tell her I was drunk. You know, but but yeah, I mean it. Uh, and the rest, I sitting there thinking, I got to go to work the next day, and the rest of these kids get to sleep all this crap off, and I just, I was kind of jealous of them, I guess you could say. But no, that probably kept me out of a lot of trouble having to go to work too.
Yeah, you don't want you had to have your energy.
Yeah, but I don't know, it was different. Even growing up, which I mean, it's not a poor place to live by any means, but it it's you have folks that had money, and you have folks that just you know middle class, I guess you could say, and then you had folks that didn't have anything. Uh, but I mean, as far as that goes, we all figured out a way to have a good time. Man, as a kid, we used to push a tire down the road, and I mean, just grab a old tire without a rim on it, push it down the road. But and the fella who is in the neighborhood is my grandparents were. I used to get off, whenever I was real little, I used to get off school bus over at their house. Uh, One of the fellas, his daddy owned a lumber company, and he was right after doing the same broke stuff we was doing. But I don't know. Um, it's a lot of stuff to the childhood. I mean, I can't bring it all up because I can't remember it all. But there's a there's several beatings that went on instead of whoopings that ought to be. A lot of times, whenever a hand ought to be used on your butt, I got a fist to the nose.
Wow.
But yeah, Daddy's favorite saying was rub some dirt on it. I was sitting over there bleeding one day. He turned around there backhanded me. We're sitting at the table, and I'd had a I'd had a bad sinus infection. And you know how it is. I mean, you're gonna smack as a kid by accident anyway. But my nose was stopped up, and I was trying to take little bites so I wouldn't smack. My daddy pointed his finger. He said, "You smack one more time." He said, "I'm gonna backhand you." And I got a bigger bite than what I should have. And before I could get it chewed up and swallowed, I smacked. He was sitting already. And the next thing I seen was the back end of his hand, and he knocked me plumb out of a chair through a paneling wall. And I
Oh
got
my
back
God.
up and I was bleeding. And he told me, he said, "Rub some dirt on it, son." He said, "Blow your nose, get back over there and finish your supper." Like it wasn't nothing. I mean, I was like, I'm pretty much done with supper now. I'm gonna go clean myself up. But yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it's strange what normal gets to be. But
How'd you do in school?
average. I mean, I wasn't by far any genius or anything. C's. Uh, if I brought in an A, they thought I forged something, forged a gift or a report card or something. But usually B's and C's. But
Okay. Well, at least you passed and everything. That's good.
yeah,
So skipping ahead, how was your high school life and stuff like once you started really growing up a little bit more? I know you said there was something going on at 17.
yeah. Just I joined the military, which I graduated at 17. So
Okay, so you graduated early.
yeah, and but I joined the National Guard, and then which I was already working full time, but then I got a different full time job and went to basic training. Uh, Went to AIT. Uh, come back, come back, and the first time I've ever really been drunk was they introduced me to something called an Alabama Slammer, and still this day, if the only thing out there left was to drink tequila, I wouldn't have to worry about being an alcoholic or nothing because that one night burnt me. But you take tequila and pour it up in a shot glass. You take uh, Sprite and pour on top of it. You take your hand over, slam it, and then once it started fizzing, you shot it. You know, and I was sitting there at the table and I thought I was fine. Well, I got up and everybody moved the earth on me. I was
Yeah.
burnt. and still didn't drink much after that. I didn't drink much after that for about a year or two. And worse, the first and only hangover I ever had was that right there. I've never had a hangover except one time, and that was it. But yeah, I just come in from basic training AIT, and I was getting ready to go to my second MOS training. And I ain't never been surprised to see a military base again for my life. I was ready to be away from my friends for a while. They tried to kill me, trying to get me to drink. And then let's see. Other than that, I mean, I started out, like I say, back in trying to drink and didn't really care for it. And I still had, I won't call them anger issues. I just blow up. I wouldn't get mad and violent. I'd hold it all in. I'd blow up at the once I hit that point. I'd blow up at whoever was closest to me, and I try and just push them away. Because I mean, I couldn't stand anybody being close to me for a long time. I didn't trust anybody. I I sure didn't trust them with my feelings. You know what I mean? That was nearly every relationship that I was in younger that most times they told me it wasn't gonna work out because I never did open up to them. I'd laugh and joke around with my buddies, but whenever it comes to something serious, I just walk off. And I still catch myself doing that, walking off. But it after growing up, you're not even allowed to have a thought. You get trained not to express it, if it makes any sense. I mean, we never was asked our opinion growing up. We you just followed whatever mama and daddy did. And that's just the way it was. But
So Skip,
huh?
no, you go first.
High school it was it was normal. I mean, I played I played football there for a little bit, and then it got to interfere with my job, and it was either work or football, and I chose to work. I didn't have any choice, but it was. I won't never forget the football coach looked at me. He said, "Son, you're gonna have to make a choice." He said, "It's either that job or work, or it's either that job or football." And I said, "Well, sir," I said, "my dad's gone." I said, I'm basically, other than what little bit my mom makes, I'm basically the only income." And I said, "Now look," I said, "I talked to my boss and see if maybe I can get, maybe if I can work 3 practices with you and then Friday night football games." They said, "Well, that ain't gonna cut it." I said, "Well, this is an easy choice, and we'll see." But I always hated that part. I always loved that went all the way through my football deal. But it was a choice I had to make. I don't really regret making it because I had to, but I'd love to have seen how it turned out if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely, it does.
I mean, I went up to him and told him, I said, "Sir, I'd like to try out football." He said, "I've been watching you walk around school, wondering why you wasn't playing football." And he told me, he said, "Meet me in the weight room." And he told me, he said, "Go over there and lift that." I said, "How do you lift it?" I had never lifted a weight. I'd never even seen a weight. And he said, "Okay." He said, "Get down here." And he showed me how to do a bench press. I'd never seen a board you lay down on, you drop weight, you use a dumbbell or a barbell. And he showed me how it was done. He said, "Okay, so I'm gonna put some weights on it." And I was a junior in high school. And he put some weights on it. He said, "That'll be good to start out on." I knocked it out. I looked at him. He said, "Can you do more weight?" And I said, "Yeah." And he started scratching his head before it was all over with. He said, "How'd you get so strong and not lift weights?" I said, "Oh, I've lifted. It's been hay bales and dealing with cows and, stuff like that." I said, "I ain't never lifted a weight for my life." But, uh, but yeah, I mean, and quick. I mean, I was quick enough to really been something, but that's one of them things.
So, when was the first time you realized you had any type of addiction issue?
it was all the way towards the end, I think, because I was always around people. Whenever I started drinking, I was always around people that were drinking. And, in the back end of your head, I quit a couple of times thinking, I'll just quit for a couple of weeks and, start back and, just see if I could quit. And I could. And, but as far as knowing I had an addiction, I was hard headed. Man, I had to hit rock bottom. Whenever I hit rock bottom, I mean, then I looked up and thought, oh, crap, I'm one of those people now. I mean, it just, I realized then it done gone too far, but I had to wait till I destroyed everything around me before I ever realized that. I mean, most of the time, I'm smart enough I can see stuff coming a mile away. And I have never had anything blindside me like alcoholism did. I mean, I don't know whether it was not wanting to look at it, not wanting to admit it, or fess up to it, because I mean, if you admit you're an alcoholic, you admit you got a weakness. I mean, you got a weakness for alcohol. And I never could train my brain to think that until after I'd lost everything. But I thought a 30 pack a day was normal. And on Fridays and Saturdays it was 60 a day. And I started having trouble with my nerves. And they put me on nerve pills. Well, I thought if they put me on 2 different nerve medications to take each day. And I thought, well, if they'll work good taking them every day, they would really work good if you save them up and take them on Friday. That's the way my head worked. So I would take 14 nerve pills on Friday and turn around and, well, like I say, smoke weed. And I would turn around there and drink 60 beers a day on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I didn't know I was in the world hardly. And I knew I was miserable, but everything else was to blame other than alcohol or what I was doing. Everything else, I blamed on everything else other than my addiction. And I blamed it on stress of a job. I blamed it on stress at home. Couldn't nobody do anything right. Y'all are the ones that was making me drink. Is the way I looked at it. If the world would just adjust to me, everything would be all right. And which I mean, I got that bad was back in '99. They lowered me down in a pit. I was working maintenance. They lowered me down in a pit, and I undone the base plate and the hydraulic lines off a cylinder. And the container, what it was in, was so small you had to ride the cylinder back up. And I got the crane cables hooked up. I was standing on the base plate, and up we went. And got all the way up there to the top, which was 35 feet, and the crane cables broke. The cylinder hung, and the crane cables broke. And I fell 35 feet, and me and the cylinder did. And I was hanging on the cylinder like this. And once it hit, it popped back up, and it hit me in the face, flipped me over backwards, and I landed. I don't know if you can see this in the screen or not, but I landed like this. Then whenever I did, the base plate come back down and land on my arm. And it should have killed me. It really should have. But like I say, the cylinder weighs 17,000 pounds. And they hollered, he's dead. I said, no, he ain't neither. It never did he knock me out. I didn't know what dead felt like, but I knew it wasn't supposed to hurt that bad. But and by the time they got down there, we had water pumps coming in on the cylinder, and it jarred. It jarred so hard it jarred those water pumps on. And by the time I got down there, I'd nearly drowned. Because I could only go so far because my arm was pinned down. And they finally got the pumps off and got it pumped back out. And they was working on the crane. I stayed down there for a long time. They were working on the crane, trying to get the crane fixed so they could get the cylinder up off of me. And it was, I don't know if you've ever heard of phantom pains, but like if you're missing a limb or missing a finger or something, you can still feel it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I mean, they're not pain. A lot of times I woke myself up one night laughing because it felt like somebody had a feather tickling the palm end of my hand, but Uh, I couldn't take pain pills. Every time I take them, I throw up. But I could drink 5 or 6 beers and the phantom pains would go away. And so that developed 5 or 6 didn't cut it, and 6 or 8 didn't cut it, and then it just built up a tolerance, I guess. But it had crushed my foot. It had messed up this side of my face, and it took off my right arm. Um, and I was back at work. That happened in January. I was back at work in September running a 100-pound jackhammer with a prosthetic arm. I wasn't gonna let it whoop me. And then I started developing nerve pain and everything else. And I had to take off some more of my arm. And I still at work, still didn't quit. They was begging me, doctors was begging me to quit. And because I mean, my foot was more of an issue than my arm even was, because it just shattered my ankle. And then I had like 10 surgeries on my foot. I've had 5 surgeries on my arm. I've had, I think, 12 surgeries on this eye. And I kept telling the doctor one time, I told him, I said, man, every time I sneeze, I said, something pops in my head, which they had to put a steel plate right here. And he said, and I was friends with him. He said, it's just that pea-sized brain you got rattling around your head, what you're hearing popping. Well, I was back at work, and we was cleaning some mold liners out, those graphite mold liners. And I sneezed, and my eye fell out. I mean, my whole side of my face dropped down, and my eye was looking down. And I was looking straight ahead, and the guy in the casting booth with me, bless his heart, good Christian guy. I mean, you never just hear him tell a dirty joke, nothing, you know. And I told him, I said, Terry, I said, my face feels funny. He looked at me and said, shit, it looks funny. And it's hard to walk because I was seeing the floor out of one eye and I was looking straight out of the other one. And they rushed me over to the doctor's office rather than the hospital, because the doctor was in his office and wanted done my surgery. And he come out there and I said, man, I'm messed up. He said, yeah, you are. He said, get to the emergency room. He said, I've done called ahead. And then they ended up cutting me from right here to right here and bringing all my face down. And then they cut in my side over here and put a stomach muscle up here to rebuild my forehead. And I tell everybody at work too, because every time I get hungry now, my eyebrows growl. You know, got the stomach muscle up there. But yeah, it's been an adjustment for sure. But I mean, I guess wanting to feel whole, I could drink and I'd feel, you know, I'd be around my buddies and I'd drink enough to where I'd even forget I had the arm. You know, I make jokes about all the time. My nickname is Lefty. I mean, you know, everybody knows me at work. I work 2 jobs. I work one at a restaurant, and then I work at Home Depot. And I mean, on my apron it says Lefty. You know, I tell everybody I give my right arm to say you something. You know, just but yeah, I mean, I can tell you a joke a lot quicker than what I can get serious. I've got a lot better about getting serious since I had to face all these demons. But it hurt. It hurt for a long time to open up and talk to anybody about anything. It was, you know, I just didn't take a beat that I had to do it. And now I realize if I'd have just opened up, maybe I never would have been in this shape to begin with. You know, it was, I missed out on a lot. I missed out on, which, you know, my daughter, I missed out on a lot of stuff because I'd rather have a can of beer and hold those feelings back because I had to be around her. You know, and you know, family functions. Nah, I come up with every excuse in the world because I mean I didn't want to have to answer any questions. I didn't want them knowing what I was doing or how I was doing. So rather than go to it, I just tell them, hey, look, I've been drinking too much. I can't make it. So I didn't want to be a liar, so I drank too much, you know. But it was, I don't know, it was tough. It was looking back on it now, seeing all the people you hurt, how much time you missed, like both sides of my family, my grandparents, after, you know, the only memories I have of them is from like high school on back, because after after I got a little bit older, I was drinking all the time. I mean, I didn't care, and it's bad to say that I survived falling 35 feet, 17,000 pounds land on you. You survived multiple surgeries, and you let a can of beer whoop your rear end. I mean, I didn't get into the nerve pills and the smoking dope until way later on in my addiction. And you know, it was just, I guess, a progression. I guess I just, whenever the beer wouldn't cut it anymore, is whenever the nerve pills got brought in, and then the marijuana got brought in. Because I really didn't want to feel anything. I'd sober up, I'd go to work, I'd be the best hand they ever had. But work, I was safe. I had a job I had to do, go to work, come home, don't want to deal with the rest of it, start drinking. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to have to admit that you can face all this other stuff, but you can't face life. I don't know about your other callers. I don't know if they've ever been in the same situation. I may be the only one out there like that or what.
I've heard all all different types of stories, but yeah, everyone's story is unique to them. So tell us about when you decided you needed to get help.
Whenever I finally decided I needed to get help, and I've told this and everybody laughs, but I was sitting in there making a pan of hamburger helper. And you can call it your higher power, or you can call it God. I call my higher power God. But I was sitting in there, and me and Kim, my girlfriend, we done split up. She done told me, she went to church one Sunday, go back. She told me, I've had enough. Said, you got to leave, and you got to leave today. And I was like, wow. She said, we argue all the time. I said, I don't never remember argument we've had. She said, no, because you stay blitzed out of your mind. And she said, you got to leave. And I was like, well, before we leave, could you tell me where my truck's at? But I was living with my boss that I worked with at the restaurant. And I was in there making up hamburger helper, or something hit me like a ton load of bricks. I hadn't had nothing to drink for about 3 days, 3 or 4 days, something like that. And man, I just started crying. I got to looking back, and it wasn't the fact that I lost Kim. I mean, granted that was part of it, but I mean, I just got to looking back on how much everything. I was like, how low am I going to go before I actually realized I got a problem? And like I said, I was in there stirring up hamburger helper. Man, I ain't made hamburger helper since then. uh, but I started crying, and I looked at Larry and I told him, I said, man, he said, I got to go back down to the restaurant, check on something. I said, no, you need to set your rear end down right over there, man. You got to talk about something. He said, what? I told him, I said, man, I need to find the Lord. I need to do something. I said, I've got to get some help. And he started crying. He said, you don't realize how long I prayed for this. I said, why ain't you ever said anything? He said, because you wouldn't have listened. He said, there's no way anything I would have said would have made any difference. He said, on the path you was on. He said, I knew you had to hit rock bottom. I said, well, I hate to call your place rock bottom, but this is rock bottom for me. And I started calling around. What made it so weird was the guy that's over the rehab place that I went to. I have held his head up out of the toilet for puking, because I mean, he was an addict before he got into the psychology and all this stuff, and he's one of the smartest men on addiction I've ever heard speak or anything. And I've heard a lot of folks speak. He's right up there with, I don't know if you know him or not, but Brian O'Shea.
I've never
Brian
heard of him.
O'Shea has wrote several books. But he was in the grips of addiction for years. He interviewed the Rolling Stones, went on tour with Rolling Stones, everything else. He stays spaced out of his mind forever. One of the great addiction speakers, if you ever get a chance to hear him speak. But Rodney is the guy's name that was over the rehab place, and I called him. I said, "Man," I said, "I need some help." And he said, "Who is this?" I said, messed up. I forgot to even tell him my name. And I said, "Man," I said, "this is Kevin." I said, he said, "Man," he said, "what are you doing?" I said, "I'm calling you because I need some help." And I said, "Can you get me in the rehab over there?" And he said, "Do you have insurance?" And I said, "Yeah, I got some. I'm not sure how much it'll pay on it." I told him, I said, "I've got some money put back." I said, "I'm not worried about that." I said, "I just need to get some help." And he said, "You know, I'll do anything in the world for you." And he called me back and he said, "Well, your insurance ain't gonna pay anything." He said, "Can you pay such and such?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "We're gonna scholarship you in on the rest." And then I got in rehab that night, and I won't never forget. I got there at 2 o'clock, and they was two thugs. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, they looked like thugs. They walked out there and grabbed my bags, and they walked off with them. And a guy I was talking to, Richard Witt, is over the finances part of the rehab. He said, "They're gonna go through your bags, make sure you ain't got any alcohol, stuff like that." And I'm sitting there looking at these two guys walking off, like, I wonder if they're gonna steal everything I got.
Yeah.
but um, but then I got in there and chow time was 4:30, and I was trying to eat meatloaf, and it's hard to eat meatloaf and cry. I sat around there and looked around with all these folks that was addicted. They was addicts just like me, whether it be heroin, whether it be pills, alcohol. And I thought, man, how did you go from living a good life to this right here? And that's a lonely feeling right there. I went back to my room and they had me in upstairs, up there by the main office, because I reckon they keep everybody up there under kind of like a suicide watch for 3 or 4 days. And man, I sat up there and I cried and cried and just read my Bible, and there's still stains on that Bible where I've cried on it. But and I'm not just a tough guy, but I mean I've been through a lot, and to admit defeat like that, it just nearly killed my soul. The only thing that ever hurt me anywhere close was whenever they told me I was going to start drawing disability. Um, I kept on wanting to go to work because I didn't want to admit that I couldn't. And then this comes up, then I told one of my counselors, I said, "I've fought my whole life." I said, "I'm so tired of being in a steady struggle." It just feels like looking back on it now, which I try not to do, but looking back on it now, it seems like my whole life has been just one struggle after another, you know. And there's been some good times. I mean, there's been some good times. There's been some great times, but for the most part, it's been a steady fight. But I mean, you just keep fighting. I mean, if that's all you know how to do, you just keep doing it. But I mean, it's alcohol. Like I say, alcohol ruined my relationship with my daughter. It ruined 2 marriages. Um, you know, back whenever I was single, a girl that say, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "Why?" I said, "You don't go out?" I'd be like, "You own a house?" Because every ex-wife I had always end up with a house. Do you own a house? But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. Whenever you have to go back and apologize to, uh, there's a lot of people. It's supposed to make you feel good, and it does in a way to let it out. It ain't worth the crap admitting defeat, But I mean, it does. I mean, it helps get. I've learned if I clean my side of the street, that's all I can do. I mean, I can't worry about whether they've forgiven me or not, just because I asked for it. And the last person I tried to make I think they called it an amends too. I just always called it an apology. Uh, they didn't even know why I was apologizing to. I mean, they said we just took you for who you were. I said, well, that ain't who I'm supposed to be. And I told them, I said, don't think of me the way I used to be. and don't believe me whenever I tell you I'm straight now. Let me show you, you know. And they come back about 2 months ago and told me, said, man, said, I can't believe a change in you. But it's helped open my eyes up. And me and Kim, I mean, we have our arguments, but like anybody does, you live with somebody, you're gonna argue with them, just spats. But as far as close, we ain't never been any close. I ain't never been this close to another person I've dated, and she's the only one because the rest of them I stayed drunk on. And I didn't care. Stuff got tough. I'd go out to the carport and drink. And I told this before, that carport started out as a relief, drinking to get away from everything. It turned into a damn dungeon. I mean, it was my spot to self-loathe, I guess you could say. And I've sat on the tailgate. I've never tried suicide. Whenever me and Kim split up, I was sitting on the tailgate one night. I was drinking. And I told God, I said, look, I said, I ain't going to kill myself. I said, but if you want to kill me over right here with a heart attack, I'm good with it. Do whatever you got to do. I'm tired of this. About, I don't know, about a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, is whenever that moment finally hit that, hey, look, dude, you can't keep living the rest of your life like this. Don't know how. Never have got a speeding ticket. Never did get a DUI. Don't even remember driving home 9 times out of 10. I mean, I thank God every day that I didn't kill somebody. I didn't run over a kid walking across the road or something. But it was, I don't know how to explain it. I guess you ever hear the old saying that the good Lord looks after drunks and fools. He had his hand full of me on both of them, but I don't know. And the more I drank, the funnier I got. There wasn't a joke I didn't know. There wasn't a smart aleck comment I couldn't make, and we'd all laugh about it. It was fun to be drunk, or at least I thought it was. And then after I got sober, I realized it wasn't it at all. I still joke. I still make the same smart aleck comments. I'm just able to deal with life sober instead of life blitzed out of my head now. But it took a long time to get to this point. This person you're seeing right now is not the same person you'd have seen a year ago. But if anybody is ever out there just struggling, I mean, just don't be afraid to ask for help like I was. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, 1,000 people can want you to get better, but until you want to get better, you're not ever going to do it. You can go to 100 different rehabs. We had one guy in rehab been in 47 different rehabs. I told him, I said, man, you're not addicted to being high. You're addicted to rehab. And he would leave out telling you he'll be back in a couple of weeks. I actually, the recovery place I was at is wanting me to go to work there as a counselor assistant. And I really did think about it. And I went back just to see some of the counselors and stuff. And I knew 5 minutes into that, I was going to have to leave. I don't know why. I was there. It just felt different being there as a visitor instead of being there as a patient. I've been asked to speak at a couple of churches. They hadn't told me when. I told them I'd try. But, if the way I look at it is, if I can get straightened out, anybody can. I mean, because I had every excuse to stay peeled up. I had every excuse to stay drunk and say, "Oh, poor pitiful me." But you gotta kind of make up your mind one day that you deserve better. And that was the hardest thing, is figuring out what I deserved and what I didn't. I mean, it's hard to. It took me forever to look in the mirror, just other than brushing my teeth. Cause I mean, I was just disgusted. I didn't even realize it. I can laugh and joke and kid about everybody else, but I can't deal with me, you know. It's kind of the attitude I had. But I don't know, it's getting there. It's getting, you know, I mean, it's getting better every day. But
That's the important thing, that you're improving every day.
yeah, yeah,
So, how do you stay sober nowadays? What do you do?
man, you know, I'd be lying if I didn't say they was what they call triggers. I mean, just the other day I went in Dollar General. I don't know if y'all have them in New Jersey or whatever, but I walked in a Dollar General to go get some mozzarella cheese. Was gonna make up some quesadillas and stuff. And I got up there at the checkout, and lo and behold, they had beer stacked to the ceiling. I'm talking about big sale going on. And there for just a split second, I could have sucked one of them things plumb out of the cardboard box, and I just left. But a lot of times now, whenever I really get to thinking that, man, I might could drink, you know, drink one again. I get to think about, hey, bud, you done tried this before. One don't work. One ain't never enough, and you know, a hundred's not enough, and one's too many. If that makes any sense. I mean, one. If I drink one, that's too many because I'm gonna drink 100.
Oh,
Uh, I just have to tell myself that I'm never gonna go back in that situation again. I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I'm not gonna be out of control again. I just, I mean, you don't have to look far to see all the people you hurt and how much of your life you missed before you realize that's your motivation. You know, you look back and you think about, you know, you missed parties, family reunions, you missed Christmases, you know, you wouldn't even come around Thanksgiving, Easter, anything like that because they didn't want to do what you wanted to do. You know, they didn't want to get blitzed out of their head. Why not want to hang out with them? But didn't want to go to church because you had to be sober to go to church. You know, I mean that's awful to say. I mean, but it's the truth. I didn't even want to, you know, the man who's looked out after me all this time, I was willing to turn my back on him over a can of natural light. You know, it just, and I was willing to give Kim up. Kim's got a little daughter that I love to death, Ava Claire, and she is a hoot. I was willing to give her up. I was willing to give Kim up. I was willing to give everything. That could have had my checking account. I wouldn't have cared. Just leave me enough money to get drunk on. I mean, just uh, you look back on it now and see what all you went through and think you idiot. But I don't know. As far as one thing that keeps me sober, it had to be memories. You know, just looking back and seeing what all you missed. And there's a lot of regret. And there's a lot of soul searching that goes with that too. You know, and knowing that I can't control it. You know, I mean, I don't. I tried to look up your story and I could never find it. And I mean, I know in rehab was, and I'd never been around what you call just really drug addicts before. And there was one guy telling us once they found him, he was in a pair of women's leotards and a foo-foo, like I don't know what you call it, like a ballerina skirt and a black tank top, and he was living up under a bridge. And me and another guy there at rehab, we made buddies. He was there on kind of he really liked liquor, and his name was Jeff. And I told him, I looked at Jeff and I said, buddy, I think there must probably be a damn drunk for in all my life. I said, I've been drunk for, but I ain't never woke up in women's leotards. One fella woke up just wearing a raincoat. I'm like, whatever y'all was on, I'm proud of whatever on it. But I made a really good friends with a guy that was a college baseball pitcher, and he got hooked on heroin. He was he was pitching and he threw out his shoulder or something. They gave him some medicine and that he got addicted to pills, and pills turned into heroin. And it was just. I told him one time. I said, I'm not saying alcoholism is more or less addiction than what some of these drugs that y'all took is. I said, but you walk in the store, you don't see a heroin on a shelf. You walk in a store, you don't see Percocets, you don't see heroin, you don't see cocaine sitting on a shelf. Every store you walk into has a beer, just about. And it's a as far as I guess a easy reminder or be an easy get. That's worse than any of them. But now all I do is just drink tea and dip snuff. That's about it. But work and pray that I don't never. There's been some bad days, where you look back and you think, man, why am I doing all this? And then, what I found is in those days, I just have to tell myself, pretty much mentally slap myself and say, hey, look, today may suck, but the odds of tomorrow sucking is less than today. So let's go ahead and get through today, and tomorrow we'll wake up and we'll see where that goes. But we're gonna stay sober today till we find out what tomorrow is. And usually by tomorrow it's better. That may sound dumb, but I mean that's the only way I know how to look at it.
So my last question for you, got any advice for people listening?
Just, man, if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be like I was. Don't let yourself hit rock bottom. And if you got loved ones, I mean, they're going, I heard so many times in rehab that folks was afraid to go to rehab, afraid that their loved ones wouldn't love them. They're going to love you more for getting straightened up. Just don't let this thing whoop you. I mean, life's too good. Even whenever it sucks, it's still better than being addicted to something.
Thanks for that.
Yes.
So how do you feel?
Nah, good, I guess. It went a lot different than what I thought it was going to.
Yeah, nice and easy, right?
Yeah, it was.
Did you have anything else you want to add in?
Nah. Pretty much, I think I talked your ear off now.
No, not at all. You did a great job.
Not just nah, just if there is one more thing. I had so many folks come up to me after rehab, and after they seen I was getting straight, that hugged my neck, told me how proud they was of me, and said, "We knew you needed help for a long time." If you've got somebody out there that's addicted to something, don't be that friend. Don't be that friend that's going to walk up to you after you get straightened up and tell you they knew you had a problem. Be that friend that's going to have balls enough to come up there and tell you, hey, dude, you got a problem. I mean, I had so many people come up to me, and I mean, I'm not talking about 10 or 12, I'm talking about hundreds. Come up and hug my neck and tell me, said, we knew you had a problem for a long time. Well, why didn't you say something? Because I didn't realize it. That's what I want to tell them. But I mean, I just tell them thank you. But I mean, inside my head, I'm like, if you cared this much to walk up here and hug my neck, if you cared this much to say that you prayed for me, why couldn't you say one of them out loud to me? Because you're not doing them any favors by not talking to them, but you're crippling them. But that's basically all I got.
That's
I
all
hope
you got?
I wasn't too strong there, but I mean it's the truth. I mean you look back on it and you think, why didn't you say something? Because I mean, evidently y'all was smarter than I was, because I thought I was just having a good time till it all hit. But Yeah. But like I say, I hope I didn't come on too strong with that, but that's something that I've thought about a lot.
No, you didn't come on strong at all. I think that was great. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
Yes, sir.
All right, my friend, sit tight. And for everybody watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below and give us a like. Also, subscribe so you can see when we upload new videos. You can also check us out at www.addicts-anonymous.com. There you find plenty of free resources as well as free literature. You can also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, and TikTok. So that's all I have for today. I hope you liked what you heard and saw. And until next time.